We are here live, starting the video, just waiting for people to join before we start our live session of Just Ask. Just waiting here. Also making sure that this is actually working because we are trying this for the first time. Again, we are here about to start our Just Ask, trying this for the first time, making sure everything is working before I get started. Still waiting to start our Just Ask session. Hopefully we don't have to restart and go to a different place. Looks like our executive director just found it. Again, we are here about to start our Just Ask session. This is the first time that we've gone live in this capacity, and we're just making sure that all of the little kinks are worked out before I start answering questions. Okay, looks like people are seeing it. Welcome, everyone. Again, we're here about to start our Just Ask, where I am going to answer questions from the North State Symphony's Masterworks 3 that we had back in February, which seems an infinity ago with everything that's going on. It seems like being in a room with 800 people is a distant memory at the moment. But yes, usually for our Masterworks concerts, we have a, not for all of our Masterworks, but for most of them, we have a session that during the intermission, we have a session called Just Ask, where I ask the audience to submit questions anonymously via text message. And it's been very successful. We've done it, I think, for maybe every year I've been here. And I usually get per concert probably about 100 to 200 questions. So it's a lot of fun, and people text me through not my own phone number, but it's a Google Voice phone number. And it's funny, I just said Google Voice and my phone came alive. It's a Google Voice number, and it's really nice because I can just scroll through my emails, and it has all of the various questions from many, many dozens and dozens of people. And at the end of intermission, usually I come sit at the lip of the stage. If there's a soloist for that particular concert, he or she or they will usually join me, and we will answer questions about anything and everything, usually about pieces played on the first half of the concert, or there's a lot of questions posed to individual orchestra members. A lot of people ask if many of our bass players are single, for example. And but anything from how long have you been in the symphony to what did you have for dinner to how do you make reeds to what does a conductor do, and we'll get to all of that very soon. And to questions about the soloist and how long they've been performing and practicing, and about the repertoire or the encore they played. And it's a lot of fun. It's one of those ways that we are able to slowly and steadily break down these barriers between the orchestra and the audience. So I'm very happy that we get to do that. And today, like I said, we're just going to answer a bunch of questions. Starting to get some people joined now. And I'm going to go back to some various questions from our Masterworks 3 concert in February, where we had a young artist winner join me at the beginning of the second half to answer questions. He's not here tonight, unfortunately, but Oliver Moore played a wonderful concerto, and so we'll be answering questions from that particular performance. So, welcome everyone. I see a lot of symphony musicians, symphony supporters, family, friends. That's great. So let's go to our first question. And also, if by chance something breaks down and I have to restart the session, just be prepared for that. Sometimes my computer acts funny and I might have to go to the phone, so we'll see. But the first question that I will answer is is how long does the symphony practice a week? And this is such a great question because the North State Symphony does not practice weekly. We do not rehearse weekly. North State Symphony is comprised of musicians that come from a very wide range of places. 50% of which is Chico and Reading. I'm starting to get the sun on my face now. 50% of which is Chico and Reading, and the other 50% come from the Bay Area, Sacramento. We have a couple that comes from Bend, Oregon, occasionally one or two from LA, some from Nevada sometimes. In a recent set of auditions, we actually hired a principal percussionist and a principal horn player. Percussionist is from Tucson, Arizona. Sorry, the sun's getting really bright now. Percussionist is from Tucson, Arizona, and our principal horn resides in, believe it or not, Oklahoma. So I can't even think of how far Oklahoma away is from Chico and Reading, but it's at least 1,500 to 2,000 miles that this particular person travels just to play in symphony concerts. So when we do concerts, Masterworks, for example, we actually come together the Saturday before the first performance. So we have what's called a double rehearsal on the Saturday before the first performance. We all meet at 10 a.m. in Chico on the campus of CSU, and we have a rehearsal from 10 to 1. Then we all break for lunch, and then we come back at 2:30 and rehearse from 2:30 to 5. So that's the first day of rehearsals. Then everybody disperses. I'm going to try to rotate somehow. Let's stop getting half of my... No, no better. Okay, well, we'll have to deal with whatever this is. And then everybody disperses, and then on Friday night after that, we have rehearsal number 3, and that's from 7 to 10. And then Saturday morning, we rehearse from usually 11 to 2. So, and that was our dress rehearsal, and then that's a total of 4 rehearsals before a Saturday night performance in either Chico or Reading, and a Sunday matinee in either Chico or Reading. And those two cities flip-flop each Masterworks. So that's how we practice, how we rehearse. It's not a weekly schedule. For some concerts, it's even more condensed than that. Our Pops concert set that was supposed to happen last weekend, for example, we usually have 1 or 2 rehearsals the day or two before the concert, which is very condensed. Not always ideal, but with things being the way they are, we get in what we can. Um, so it really depends on the concert set, but there's always at least, for most of the big sets, there's at least 2 rehearsals. But for the Masterworks, there's usually 4. And sometimes, if we're lucky, there can be more than that, but that's very much a rarity. So, someone sent a message that, are there any microphones on the stage, or is it all natural sound? Both of our halls are good enough that we don't need any sort of sound enhancements. There are actually some orchestras out there that do use microphones within the orchestra, and it's churned out into the speakers in the hall. But it's done so in such a way that you can't tell that it's actually amplified in any way. But some halls are just so terrible that you have to do that. Ours are good. We don't have to worry about that. Laxon Auditorium and the Cascade Theater in Reading are wonderful spaces, and we're very lucky to be able to perform in those. Again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us in this North State Symphony edition of Just Ask. For those of you who don't know what Just Ask is, during our Masterworks performances, we encourage audience members to submit anonymous questions via text message during the intermission, which I come out at the beginning of the second half, and sometimes with a soloist, and answer anything and everything. And we're on our 3rd question now. Hi, Nicole. So let's see. This is a good one. Someone asks, hi Scott, with all due respect, what exactly is a conductor's job? Are you keeping count for the orchestra? Can you go rogue in a performance and change the tempo emphases? Sorry, this is a more than one question, thank you. The conductor's job, this is a great question. I am up there as a person who has this understanding of this piece of music in front of us. I am essentially a unifier of 75 or so different opinions on how something goes, and how all of these various ideas and nuances all coalesce into one sort of magnificent culmination of sound. So it's more of an affirmation a lot of times that we all have this understanding, but there are these variations, these different interpretations of how things can go, and the conductor is not just a time beater. Unfortunately, and funny enough, a lot of conducting is not even in the gestures that, as an audience member, you're seeing. For the orchestra, there's a lot that's going on the front side of the conductor. A lot, Leonard Bernstein, for example. There's a very famous piece on YouTube where he's conducting it's like the finale of Haydn's 88th Symphony, and he's doing it 100% with his eyes. Now, I hope that when I'm 70 plus years old, that my eyes are as expressive as Bernstein's before he passed away in the 90s. But yes, a lot is emoted through the eyes, through facial expression, through all of this, combined with what you see as an audience and what the hands are doing, and what other body gestures are doing. Now, what's fun about doing this live, like with people during concerts, is that when people ask what a conductor does, I can actually pull someone from the audience, stick them on the podium, and I usually, what I do is I whisper something in their ear and tell them how to get a very specific sound from the orchestra, and then they have to figure out how to do it. And they're always astonished at how just these micro gestures, these micro things that they can do will elicit a reaction from the orchestra. And I think that's always magical. Just moments that, in retrospect, I will cherish a lot more when we do it in the future. So yeah, a conductor does a lot more than just start and stop. Although those are important functions, it's important to breathe with the orchestra, to be one with the orchestra in breath. Sometimes conductors forget that we are musicians as well, but our first priority is to enable the musicians to play at their maximum ability, and to be one with them as one giant organic unit. So it's very important, especially me as a wind player, to breathe when musical phrases and musical sections start. But also, the job of the conductor starts from the very first upbeats, which gives all the information that the orchestra needs for the next several seconds. And this happens very, very quickly. You get everything from tempo to character and lots of other sort of micro things about how the next passage is going to be played. So you start the group, and then it's also the job of the conductor to know when not to do things. So it's during a performance that you see the result of, again, a rehearsal process. During the rehearsal process, you rehearse all of the things that can go wrong during the performance. And it's the performance that usually everything that's coming together is coming together for the first time, because you don't have a lot of time in rehearsals. The conductor's job, going back to the origins of the conductor, is to condense the rehearsal process and save organizations money, because it takes, again, a much longer period of time to unify 70 plus opinions about how a piece of music is supposed to go. So the conductor's job is to start the orchestra, to give interruptions and directions along the way, to regroup, reorganize here and there. And when something has to change, that's also when the conductor's job is important, to come back, to slow something down, to build up to a climax, and of course to do cutoffs and all of that, because phrase endings are actually as important and as equally difficult to unify as the beginnings of phrases. So there's lots of this could be an hour or 24-hour discussion in itself, but I will try to do much more as we go on here. Again, welcome everyone. Some new people have joined since I last started talking. Thank you all for joining us. This is our live version of Just Ask, where during concerts at least, since this is not a concert, but it's great that we get to do this because we have more time now. I don't have anywhere to be. So, it's great that we can expand on this. Usually we're very pressed for time. We have usually 3 to 10 minutes to answer just a plethora of questions from the audience. And now we have, again, a lot of questions that I've pulled out from Masterworks 3 back in February. And I'm also going to take some live questions here. So welcome, everyone. And I'll go back and read through the questions in the chat very soon. I'm going to keep going here just a little bit. Let's see. This is a very popular question. Someone asked who is my favorite composer. And this is a difficult question. And if you ask most conductors this, the answer is typically our favorite composer is whoever we are studying at that particular time. However, with that aside, since I have no concerts in the immediate future, I'm studying more for concerts that are coming up in the long haul. And so I'm getting to just absorb myself in music that I haven't absorbed myself in for a long time. And some of my favorite composers, those of you who have been coming to our concerts know that I love, for example, Jean Sibelius, who is a Finnish composer that I wrote my dissertation on many years ago now. And I remember when I first was introduced to his music, I was sitting in a room in Lexington, Kentucky in 2005, and I was listening to music late at night because I was just trying to absorb as much new music as I could, and stumbled upon Sibelius and his Fifth Symphony. And Sibelius is one of those composers, true symphonists, who took these rules and ideas from previous composers, from Beethoven, from Haydn, Mozart, these structural things that you have to do when you compose a symphony, and he broke most of those rules. The Fifth Symphony, for example, goes seamlessly from section to section in many of his movements, and it's hard to say where things begin and end. And the textures are some of the most interesting things for me because it's all very horizontal. He stacks and stacks and stacks, and it's much less about vertical motion. It's much more about just things being introduced and then disappearing, and other things being introduced, and then these minimalist type gestures that have these very elongated melodic lines on top. But what really struck me about his music is at the very end of the Fifth Symphony, he threw all of that away and gave us these power chords with the most powerful element of music, which is silence, stuck in the middle of it during all these chords. Shum, silence, shum, silence, and then a few more, and then you have this badum in the timpani, and then it's over. And I was just, once you're accustomed to how he had been writing for 32 minutes, it's just like having the rug pulled out from under you, and you're just thrown on your back. So Sibelius is one of my favorites. Stravinsky, one of my favorites before that. I used to very much dislike the music of Haydn, but when I went to my first live Berlin Philharmonic concerts, probably more than a decade ago now, I saw an all Haydn concert of 88, 89, 90. And it's at that point I found out that I just hadn't heard Haydn done well. So that's been a very important part of my own sort of learning process. Wow, lots of questions coming in, and I will try to all these. Those of you who are sending stuff. Oh wow. Okay, well, I'll go to some questions from the chat now, and if those run out, I will answer a few more from the pre-prepared list of questions from our Masterworks 3 that that I prepared for this session. So, Laura Lynn Ruff, this is the first question that I see here. What life experiences have helped you the most to be such a successful conductor? I think being anyone who is a successful conductor has a lot of different experiences, and I will go even broader than that. To be a successful music director, especially a music director of a regional orchestra like the North State Symphony, one of the most important things that I did is having lots of different jobs outside of music during my formative years. I mean, just learning how to talk to people, how to ask questions. For example, I worked as a fundraiser in Boston from 2005 to 2007, I think, somewhere in there. And that was one of the most invaluable things that I've done that have helped me prepare for a career as a conductor. Learning how to really have these conversations with people about something you're really passionate about. And raising money, of course, is very, very important. But just being able to really listen to people and take in their concerns and show them why your passions really align with their passions. So that's sort of the non-musical side. As far as the musical side that have helped me become the conductor that I am, I've always been taught that you have to be the best musician possible before you ever pick up a stick or a baton. I started out playing saxophone when I was in 5th grade, and from that, some of the most important early training I did was just throwing on a recording, a record, CD, whatever, DVD, and just listening and writing down and transcribing, playing licks over and over and over again until they were ingrained in my being, so much so that I will never forget, even the things that I worked on so many years ago now. So, the first thing is becoming as good a musician as you can be, and I hope that that never stops for me because it's an ongoing process. Um, from fifth grade, which was when I started, for those of you who don't know, I play saxophone. When I started playing saxophone, I was in the public school system in Michigan, and did a lot of diverse things to get to the study of conducting. I joined the high school marching band. I was introduced to some very um, exotic repertoire for what a high school marching band is supposed to play. For example, one of my first marching shows was Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which is now my favorite piece of music, along with Aaron Copland's Billy the Kid, along with the music of Danny Elfman. So for that, I have to thank my high school band director, Tony Cox, for really pushing the envelope of what a marching band can do, and also for challenging a very young, impressionable musician, or to-be musician. And it was in my early high school years that I actually was asked to lead a sectional, and that's the first time I ever waved my arms in front of people. Now, I had waved my arms in front of CDs of the Nutcracker before that, but in front of people, that's the first time that I really, had to learn what I was doing and what all of this meant. And so that stuck with me because I was already interested in the whole idea of conducting and the whole idea of leading, and I already loved the idea of orchestral music, especially after growing up in places that I didn't have access to live orchestras very much, not at all actually, and relying on TV and broadcasts of the Boston Pops, relying on CDs of classical performances, and making the right connections in high school even. One of my good friends at the time was assisting the Nashville Youth Symphony, which is the youth orchestra that's in residence at Vanderbilt University. And so when I went to Vanderbilt as an undergrad, I already had an in with the youth orchestra because of my friend who was working with them. So the conductor talked to me and agreed to take me in, and so I was a conducting assistant with the Nashville Youth Symphony, and that's where, as someone whose primary instrument is non-orchestral, I was able to pick up very rapidly a large chunk of experience that, had I not had that connection, I definitely would not be where I am today. So the fact that I was able to be under the umbrella of a great youth orchestra and a very knowledgeable conductor who I learned an incredible amount from score reading to very basic gestural things to how to pick apart a score, and all of those were things I had no idea how to do, and are still things that I work towards improving. So after I became a conduct assistant with the Youth Symphony, when I was an undergrad, I really had to make my own opportunities if I wanted to perform, or not just perform, but if I wanted to really have significant amounts of time that I was standing in front of people taking in repertoire that I wanted to conduct. So with the youth orchestra, I get to conduct for maybe 5 minutes a week, which is fine. But I actually did a lot of what we call reading orchestras, where I asked a bunch of my friends, will you play for me for an hour? I'll give you pizza and pop. So come for pizza and pop, get to play through a Schumann symphony. We all go home happy. And I did that several times with some other conducting, aspiring conducting friends of mine. And that happened many years that I was at Vanderbilt. And I did a conducting recital my senior year, which was Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, and that was terrifying because the first time out of 3 rehearsals and a performance, the first time that we all came together as one unit was the performance itself. So that was, for those of you who know the piece, that's just stressful. It's, in a word, stressful. Um, but a memory I will never forget. And I had already known, especially after conducting Rite of Spring in college. I knew that I wanted to be a conductor. I was already auditioning for grad schools and conducting, and taking various other auditions. And welcome everyone. And so from that point, um, really, I went to grad school in Boston and then did a doctorate in Montreal. But to emphasize the conducting aspect, the the biggest sort of education that I received was going to workshops, was going to rehearsals in area orchestras of good and bad conductors, and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and taking all this and refining my own conducting technique. And that is an ongoing process and something I still enjoy doing. Whatever made me, the conductor I am today is just a huge composite experience from all these little things that have happened throughout the course of my career, and no two conductors have the same path. I mean, that's pretty much guaranteed. The funny thing about conducting is, to get into grad school in conducting, you have to have conducting experience. To have conducting experience, someone has to hire you as a conductor or want to play for you. And to do that, you have to have an education in conducting. So you can see the paradox here. So I don't know how I did it. I just happened to have the right experiences, paying off friends to come play for me for an hour here and there, having the 5 minutes a week with the Nashville Youth Symphony. And then, all the positions I've held leading up to me being here in California have been my path. So hopefully I can be more specific later on. Let's see. Oh, Greg. Hi, Greg. Do I speak any foreign languages? I used to be much better at French than I am now. When I did a doctorate at the University of Montreal, I had just finished my master's at the New England Conservatory in Boston and needed something to do for the next year. So I auditioned for doctorates and got into that program, and won a conducting spot at the University of Montreal. There was one doctorate spot available, and I got it. And the school is all French, so all of my stuff was in French. The seminars, I was required to take French classes every semester. I was in residence there, so my French went from zero to some very quickly. Um, it's something I need to keep up, and I did take a few years of German, a few years of Spanish. I wouldn't say that I speak them very well anymore. I mean, you really have to keep up with languages consistently um, to have any meaningful depth in it. Um, let's see, lots of questions here now. Okay. Um, another one from, actually, I'll come back to yours, Greg. Kathy A. Weeks. What is the most bizarre question I've been asked during Just Ask? There are lots of them. I'm trying to think if I remember any offhand. But like I said, when we get these questions, they are very, very diverse questions. Um, I think some people send nonsensical questions just to be funny. Again, they are anonymous questions, so people can get away with that. But again, people ask, various musicians of the orchestra, what they've had for dinner, what's the superfood that makes them play so well, or is a certain player of the orchestra single? You never know what people are going to ask, and we do get a good laugh at them backstage during the intermission. I will think more about that, and maybe one in particular will come to mind. But let me scroll through here. Oh, Greg, you have all the good questions. I will come back to that. Again, welcome everyone. This is our live version of Just Ask. Donna, Luigi, Mom, Rachel, Theodore. Let's see, Sam Hilaire. Hi everyone. Let's see. Okay. All right, I'm going to go briefly back to my previous list of questions. Someone asked, what is the hardest piece I've ever conducted? Well, it's funny, when we're all young, and especially when I was younger, a younger conductor, learning how to conduct, it seemed like every piece was the hardest piece I've ever conducted. I mean, for example, I remember studying Stravinsky's Rite of Spring for the first time, and I actually had to make diagrams of each section of the piece and to map it out and to try to differentiate between, patterns in the music, just so that I didn't get lost in the music. I mean, it's a very complicated piece, much like a lot of Stravinsky's music, but every piece, or most pieces out there, can have difficult moments, and there are pieces that have textures or multiple textures in the orchestra that need a conductor's attention various times, and sometimes it's hard to manage those at the same time. And that's again where the role of conductor sometimes is just to enable people to listen more and try to sink in with what they're doing. But there's actually another Stravinsky ballet that comes to mind. That's his second ballet, which is Petrushka. The second piece in his musical sort of timeline that helped him rise to stardom. But in Petrushka, there are specific spots for me and for the orchestras that I've conducted with this piece that it always seems to be as difficult as the last time. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times I've conducted it, just there are certain spots that don't get easier. And you do what you can with the time that you have, and trust that some things will just come together on their own, and that's just really what you have to do. And this isn't a lot of spots. We're talking very key spots in the repertoire that no matter what you do as an ensemble or as a conductor, trying to work out something, you can't rehearse the same spot 40 times. I mean, you don't have the time to do it. Nobody wants to do it. Doing a spot 2 or 3 times, having it get a little bit better, will actually inspire players to figure out what's not quite gelling, and hopefully the next time you do it, after you've all had a chance to just step away from it for a brief amount of time, usually works most issues that can't be resolved by this communication back and forth. There are moments like that. Let's see. Someone asked a question about one of our guest artists. This is particularly Oliver Moore. How much did the orchestra practice with Oliver before tonight's performance? So again, this goes back to February, and hang on, I lost the question. Okay, this goes back to February, and Oliver was our wonderful young artist winner from the 2019 Young Artist auditions, and he's currently studying in Kansas. But all of our soloists, young artists or otherwise, professional, whoever they are, most of the time, 99% of the time, join us for the first time the day before the first concert. So going back to how long our rehearsal process is, we usually have 2 rehearsals the Saturday before the first concert, and then the Friday night, the day before the first concert, and then Saturday morning. So usually our guest artists join us for the Friday night rehearsal, usually about an hour, depending on the piece. And then for the dress rehearsal, which is usually a spot check and a run through the day of the performance. Which means anyone who plays with the North State Symphony really has to know what they're doing. I mean, it's a very condensed process, and all of you have heard, our guest artists are fantastic. We're very fortunate to have both the young talent that we have in the North State and the guest soloists that we have from all over the world, really. And I hope that's something that we can continue to do for all of you. Again, hi everyone. Hi Ruth, Valerie. Oh, okay. Valerie has a question. This is from Valerie Sam, I think. How would you or others describe the conducting style that you've cultivated? A lot of people say I'm very clear. So when you have, rehearsals in such a condensed format, it's really important that the musicians know what you're doing and where you are on the music and what you want to get from that. And I hope to continue for especially the North State musicians that are here with us tonight, I hope to continue to be clear for you all in the future. I think that is one of the most important jobs of the conductor is to have a clear sense of not just the shape of the piece, but to all of the details that go in, from the little nuances of the phrase to the directions of the phrase, being able to emote that and to articulate again beginnings and endings and showing the lengths of notes and precision of attack. Everything has to be there without words. A lot of conductors like to stop and talk a lot in the rehearsal process, and there has to be some talking, but too much, I think, gets in the way of the music and in the way of the artistic product that you as a unit are capable of. So I think my style has sort of evolved from what I believe the need of a conductor is, or the goal of having a conductor is. Again, welcome everyone. This is our live version of Just Ask. Let's go to our next question. This is an older question from February. Do we ever consider performing movie soundtracks such as Star Wars, James Bond, etc., or perhaps Led Zeppelin or other contemporary artists? Yes, and that is why 3 or 4 years ago now, we created the Symphony Pop series so that we could bring you things that aren't just Beethoven and Brahms and Mozart and Stravinsky and Sibelius and all of those other wonderful composers. But our mission is to reach everyone in the North State, and we want to make sure that we are able to have concert experiences that can engage everyone. And so with our North State Symphony Pop series, we've done, our first Symphony Pops was with Uncle Dad's Art Collective, which just last week we held a watch party with the first concert we did with them back in April of 2017. And that allowed us to show what a Pops concert is capable of. We called that concert a Splash of Favorites. And we got to do everything from Daft Punk to Soundgarden to Beach Boys to Debussy's Clair de Lune to light classics that you might have heard with Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops, like Cavalry Overture or Star Wars, or really, there's tons of stuff that you can do in Pops concerts that you can't do in regular concerts. And actually, the concert set that we were supposed to have last week, called Our Expanding Universe, which was our pop set for this season, we had everything on that concert from Gustav Holst's The Planets to Star Wars to Star Trek. There was just this huge compilation of all your favorites, pertaining to the sky, and it was just an amazing concert that we hope to bring to you next season, so do look forward to that. We strive to bring you as many different experiences, and our goal as an organization is to make sure that everyone in the North State, everyone in Chico and Reading and in between, which is well over 300,000 to 400,000 people, we want to make sure that everyone knows we exist and knows that we are a viable, live music and entertainment option for them. We don't care how you come to a concert as long as you come to a concert. We don't, for some people it can be a very formal experience. You get to dress up, go on a date, bring your significant other. That's great. But we don't want to isolate or exclude anyone. We want to, if you've had a long day at work and you want to relax at the Symphony, please come how you are. When I used to live in Boston and go to the Boston Symphony, I was, dirt poor grad student. I would often go, to this, multi-million-dollar orchestra in torn jeans and a dirty white T-shirt. So it's you go as you are. We just want to make sure that you are enjoying the music. It's all about this community experience that we're creating within this limited amount of time, and we want everyone to experience these traveling back in time to these various composers and reliving these moments in history and reinforcing that what we're experiencing now, others have experienced many years ago. So that's we're trying to pull all of that together. And when you come to a North State Symphony concert, that is what you hopefully will experience. That there's something for everyone in every experience we have. So, Julia, less talking is more. Yes, agreed. Bring on the Zappa. Yes, Brian Simpson says bring on the Zappa. I love Frank Zappa. His music is very expensive. One of his 4-minute pieces is like $2,000 just for the orchestra to play. So maybe someday we'll have some Zappa. Let's see. All right, I'm going to go back to one of our pre-submitted questions. 2 questions that pertain to the same thing. Scott, sometimes you use a baton and sometimes you don't. What determines whether you will or won't? And then the next question is the baton just so it looks really cool, or is he doing something? My 13-year-old niece. So both of these questions are relating to the baton. I have mixed feelings about the baton, and sometimes even during large orchestral pieces with 70 to 80 musicians on stage, sometimes even then I will put the baton down during the middle of the piece. And when there are moments in the music that I feel that are more tender, more expressive, need a little bit more of flexibility within the fingers, that's when I put the baton down so that I have 5 more fingers to help me show the emotion that I'm trying to convey. I will never use a baton for small ensembles like in a chamber music setting where we have up to 20 or 30 players, all pretty close together. At that point, I really want to really just enable the musicians as much as I can, especially in a smaller setting. And again, having that flexibility, being able to move away from all of these structuralized things that one thinks of when you think of a conductor, like a podium, like a baton. Whenever I can get away from those things, I can. Now, the podium does have a significant function for people like me who don't have the advantage of height sometimes. So for the people in the back of the orchestra, the podium and the baton come together to produce a sense of clarity with these little, especially if you have a more rhythmic piece, multi-meter pieces. The baton, I think most musicians would argue, does come in handy to give a very clear sense of ictus and where that beat is. So yeah, I'm having an internal debate about the baton that's ongoing, and maybe sometime I'll drop it completely, but we'll see. Someone asked if I have to stretch before a performance. Yes. Oftentimes I will be found in the wings right before I walk on stage, doing various yoga poses just to make sure that my entire body has the flexibility that I think it should have for usually some very demanding music, and I don't want to pull various muscles during performance. So stretching, I think, is a must. One of my teachers, Robin Fountain, who is at Vanderbilt University and also conducts in Michigan and various other places, always does Tai Chi before performances, and I think that's when it really was ingrained in me that conductors need these external things to prepare both the mind and the body for um, the exercises of a performance, because it is a mentally exhausting thing for some of those larger pieces, for a Beethoven symphony, for a Bruckner symphony, for a Mahler symphony. I mean, those are just, they're enormously taxing for the conductor and the orchestra, and anything that we can do to physically prepare and mentally prepare, I think most musicians do. Um, Someone asked if Beethoven Ninth will be rescheduled. I can answer that now. Yes, it is rescheduled. So you have that to look forward to. We are not announcing our 20th season yet, but please look forward to that on May 15th, and you will hear that Beethoven's Ninth Symphony will now be our season opener in September. So that is the only, probably one of a couple hints that I've given you this evening. But yeah, we can't not do Beethoven after all that we've been through, not together at this point. So one of my first priorities is to make sure that that happens, and I'm very happy that we have the choirs from both Shasta College and Simpson University on board with that, and we did lose two of our soloists from the date change, but we are in the process of firming up the remaining two soloists as we speak. But it is going to happen, and we're very much looking forward to bringing you Beethoven's Ninth Symphony this fall. Oh wow, someone asked if, Valerie again, has asked if I've ever made a conducting mistake that I could hear but no one else could. Yes, yes, everyone makes mistakes. I'm human, the orchestra's human. I think what we don't hope for is that we both make the same mistake at the same time. If that happens, probably not so good things are going to happen. But usually when a conductor makes a mistake, unless it's just in a spot that you cannot make it, and fortunately, I believe, and knocking on wood, I believe that I've already made the worst mistakes when I was a much younger conductor, and those mistakes came from lack of preparation. I mean, just moments in music that a conductor, for example, if there's just this quiet spot, and then all of a sudden you're expecting this giant fortissimo, this loud moment, giving that at the wrong moment is not so good. And that has happened before, not with the North State Symphony, but yes, there have been mistakes, and there are occasionally mistakes that we make together here and there that nobody notices. But we are stronger together, and that's how we get through that. So let's see here. All right, going back to the questions. This is reinforcing something that I talked about earlier. How many of the symphony are from outside Chico and Reading? Again, approximately 50% of the orchestra is from the North State, from Chico and Reading. The other half come from various places, from Oregon to the middle and southern parts of California, occasionally someone from Nevada. I talked about how we have two principal musicians who come from both Tucson, Arizona, and Oklahoma. So quite a ways to come for a week of concerts with the North State Symphony, but we're very happy that we have such incredible musicians who want to play with us, who have heard about the wonderful things that we're doing with our community, and that our musicians are doing, and want to come be a part of it. So we are blessed in that respect. Let's see. This is an interesting question. Do individual musicians have enough of a score in front of them to allow what the orchestra members are playing? No, they don't. In fact, the musicians only have their parts in front of them. They only have the lines of music that they are playing, and it's up to me to unify all of that, especially if it's a new piece. If it's an old piece, if it's a piece that everybody knows, like Beethoven in one of his symphonies, Fifth Symphony, Seventh Symphony, um, usually musicians come to those rehearsal processes very prepared, are able to play every single note on their page and come with a curiosity to learn something new, to learn something different about a piece they know very well, and how to bring it all together. Going back to the days when we were all learning our instruments, everyone, I assure you, everyone who plays in the North State Symphony and every orchestra like the North State Symphony comes to rehearsal ready to learn everyone else's part, not their own part. They come to rehearsal with a level of preparation that enables them to listen to everyone else around them. And I think that's one of the most important things, to be able to do what we do, is having a group that really knows how to do that with each other. And that's something that I have appreciated about the North State Symphony from day one, from conducting them in February of 2015 during my audition concert. We prepared a very demanding piece, Dvorak's Seventh Symphony, which is not a very known symphony, and they came ready to go, and I so have enjoyed this energy that the musicians bring to the process. We will do a few more minutes. Let's see here. See if I have any other questions that I need to answer on the. This question is from Brooks, one of our previous board presidents of the symphony and now a member of the board. Brooks says, I see in programs that bass players are listed under bass and alternatively under double bass. Why is this? A distinction without a difference? There's really no real difference between a bass and a double bass in how we use it. Double bass, and actually I did a little bit of looking up today about this, just because I know what I was going to say. I want to see what someone else was going to say about this. But the origin of the name double bass stems from the fact that its initial function was to double the bass line of large ensembles. So that's the only reason we call it the double bass. But the double bass is the formal name, just like the violoncello, a lot of instrument names have much longer names than they actually are. We have abbreviations for them, like the bass or the cello. So there's no real difference, Brooks. Great question. You're always full of them. I'm going to go through the chat here. Oh, Brian Simpson says, good ones have a score. Yes, if you go back to the percussion section during rehearsals and concerts, a lot of them will have scores because they play so few notes that they like to follow along. Follow along, but also make sure that they know exactly where they come in next. So Brian, I appreciate that. Okay, let me skim through here. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, actually going on longer than I thought we would. Thank you for all the comments, for just being here on a Friday night, and staying safe with everyone, social distancing, making sure that we can all get out of this as quickly as possible. Let's see. Okay, and this is also a moment where if anyone else has any questions, please shoot them my way very quickly, and I will try to answer them. I've answered most ones in the chat. I am going to begin to wrap this up then. You have a few more seconds to send anything if you'd like, but this has been great. You know, we're all stuck at home right now. We're all away from music, and we at the Symphony are going to continue to find ways for us all to connect on various symphony-related things, like having these Just Ask sessions, and hopefully we can do more in the coming weeks. We are planning a couple more watch parties. Like I said, we had a watch party last week with Uncle Dad's Art Collective where we watched their portion of our first Pops concert back in 2017. In the coming weeks, we hope to have a Beethoven's Fifth watch party of my debut concert with the North State Symphony back in September 2015. So we hope to relive that, especially while we can't have live concerts right now, and also most likely Beethoven's Seventh Symphony. So you can look forward to those in the coming weeks. And like I said, our season announcement hopefully I think is on May 15th, right after when our Masterworks 4 would have been. So, and I think we have another watch party, another shorter one scheduled for Berlioz and his Roman Carnival Overture, which we did. Was this the same concert? I think it was the same concert as the Firebird Scream back in 2017. So we're going to watch the opening piece of that concert, so the Berlioz Roman Carnival Overture, which is just a huge party from beginning to end for both the conductor and the orchestra. So let's check here. No questions. You guys are great. Thank you so much for being here. So again, be safe. Hopefully we're only stuck in isolation for a few more weeks. Hopefully we can all go back to some semblance of normalcy in the coming weeks. In the meantime, please don't forget your symphonies, museums, any love that you can send their way. I'm sure they would greatly appreciate, especially in these times that they're trying for every arts organization out there. And again, as much as we can do for you, we're going to do. If there's anything that you would like us to do, please shoot us a message, send me a message, and we'll try to set whatever that is up. And so, again, I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope you, your family, your friends, everyone that you know is not affected by what's going on out there with COVID-19. I know it's awful. I mean, it seems every day I'm hearing about people that I know or that are in the sort of broad circle of musicians around the world who are affected by it. So, be proactive, be smart. Do whatever you can to not test whatever this thing is. So, again, we will be back to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to do more of these in the coming weeks. So everyone have a great night, and we hope to very much see you in person in a packed concert hall as quickly as possible. So thanks again for coming out, and have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.